Hello, my dear students again. Once again, I am back with you, and this time I'll take up a chapter from Standard 10's book, Footprints Without Feet. Yes, this is the name of the same chapter which you have in the book. So let us do it will be a line by line explanation for your understanding so that you can benefit in the exam. Maybe we will not be able to complete the whole chapter today, but we will do line wise and surely this is going to benefit you. So here we start. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh, muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. Now, children, here this is the story of an invisible man. This is taken from the novel Invisible Man, and it is just an excerpt from there. Here we see that the invisible man named Griffin, he has become invisible. He was very good in physics, and by this he had actually taken up the chapter Light, where it showed that the tissues, if these tissues of human beings, they are separated out, then the light passes, that is, they become invisible. They become invisible, and this is what he showed. So if these tissues, human body, if at all these tissues are separated out, then it will be just compared to that of the glass. A glass, when it is kept in honey or any liquid which is of higher concentration, higher density, then that glass is not visible. The same thing will happen in for the human beings. Sometimes we have seen the shops where there are glasses all over and one is the entrance. So sometimes we bang and bump into each other. Sometimes we bump into different places because we don't know which is the wall and which is the entrance. So here is also the same story. Here we see that he has become already invisible. After that, he in the London streets, he is moving down the streets, and let's see what all he faces. I'll be now the chapter as it starts. I'll also explain it in Hindi in between. So that all can avail the facility. So the two boys, now what happened there was, as he was moving, as Griffin was moving down the streets, it was chilly winter. तो ठंडा का समय था. ग्रिफिन लंदन के रास्तों पे वो चल रहा था. जब लंदन के रास्तों में चलने लगा तब उसको ये इनविजिबिलिटी का खामियां दिखाई दिया. जैसे कि ठंडा में ही वॉज स्टार्क नेकेड, उसके बदन पे कपड़े नहीं थे, तो तभी वो इनविजिबल था. कपड़ा पहन लेता तो वो उसको दिखाई देता, तो ही वुड बी अपियरिंग एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग. तो बिना कपड़ों के ठंडा में, विदाउट शूज़, लंदन में चलना विदाउट शूज़ इज़ वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट, एंड ही वॉज वॉकिंग डाउन द स्ट्रीट्स. सो उसी समय सामने से एक रैली आ रहा था, एंड वो रैली आके, सो रैली में से दो बच्चे वहाँ रुक जाते हैं बिकॉज they had seen the footsteps on the white marbles that is on the staircase of a house. So the two boys, they started in surprise. They were really surprised at the fresh muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. So in the winter season, who is that in London, that somebody who is walking barefoot? This was really surprising. तो वो boys वहाँ रुक जाते हैं कि barefoot, खाली पैर, इस ठंडा के मौसम में लंदन में कौन चल सकता है? And what was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? तो वो footsteps जाके it stops at the middle of the staircase. स्टेयरकेस का बीच में रुक जाता है, तो वो इंसान कहाँ गया, वो आदमी कहाँ गया, ना ऊपर गया ना नीचे आया स्टेयर्स से, तो वो बीच में कैसे रुका हुआ है, और वो अगर रुका है तो दिखता क्यों नहीं है? Why is he not appearing? Why can't people see him? Well, so then, as they gazed, a remarkable sight met their eyes. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. Now, because as I told you, the story is not a full story given over here. So, what happens? These two boys, they suddenly try to touch these footmarks. And so, Griffin moves up one step. So, as they are watching, they see that one step moves back, that is, a fresh footmark, muddy footmark appears over there. तो जैसे ग्रिफिन पीछे जाता है, एक स्टेप ऊपर चले जाता है, उसका फुटमार्क दिखता है, क्योंकि गीला था, विंटर सीजन, ड्यू ड्रॉप्स गिरा हुआ था, ओस गिरे हुए थे, तो उस पर फुटप्रिंट्स, वो मिट्टी गीला था तो वो चिपक जाता है उसके पैर में, एंड वो दिखने लगता है. Further footprints followed one after another, descending the steps and progressing down the streets. So now what happened? Griffin देखा कि हमको तो अब बचना है. I have to now save myself. So he went down the staircase and he started running on the streets. तो अब जब नीचे आया staircases से, क्योंकि उसको बचना था, तो fresh footmarks फिर दिखने लगा. Now it was descending down, it was coming down the steps, and it was progressing towards the street, it was moving towards the street. So the boys followed. So बच्चों के लिए ये तो something which is very invisible and they can see, but this man is not visible. So obviously for these children it was something very interesting, and so they started running. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter, and at last disappeared altogether. Now, when he started running, what happens now? The body is warming up. So, body was warming. The footmarks which were there on his feet, that now is, so the mud is now falling down. मड झड़ने लगता है, सूखने लगता है, क्योंकि वो दौड़ रहा था, एंड सो वो फुटमार्क्स धीरे धीरे इनविजिबल हो गया. फुटमार्क्स और दिख नहीं रहा है, धीरे 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 थोड़ा बहुत कहीं कहीं फुटमार्क्स दिख रहा है, नहीं तो नहीं दिख रहा है. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. So this explanation कि वो फुटमार्क्स क्यों नहीं दिख रहा है, it was really simple. बहुत easy था इसका explanation देना. The bewildered boys, bewildered means surprised. So ये शॉक था. द चिल्ड्रन, वो दो लड़के, उन लोग सरप्राइज थे कि क्या हुआ, ऐसे कैसे हुआ, फुटप्रिंट्स को देखा जा रहा है एंड उसके बाद वो भी डिसअपियर हो गया. सो दे एक्चुअली वर फॉलोइंग द साइंटिस्ट. सो ग्रिफिन वॉज अ साइंटिस्ट. ही वॉज a very meticulous man and a perfectionist, and he was having a lot of knowledge about physics. And so he had discovered how to make human body invisible. So this Griffin, being a scientist, he had discovered, this was a recent discovery, and had this discovery been told to the world, the whole world would have benefited from it. But no, he did not tell it. He wanted to take advantage of it, and ये invisibility का advantage लेना चाहता था ग्रिफिन. एंड सो नाउ, बट बहुत बड़ा साइंटिस्ट था, तभी वो इनविजिबिलिटी को डिस्कवर कर पाया. ग्रिफिन द साइंटिस्ट हैड कैरिड आउट एक्सपेरिमेंट आफ्टर एक्सपेरिमेंट टू प्रूव दैट द ह्यूमन बॉडी कुड बिकम इनविजिबल. सो ग्रिफिन वो बहुत एक्सपेरिमेंट्स किया था कि एक के बाद एक एक्सपेरिमेंट करते गया, so that he can prove, so that invisible हो human body. Okay, finally He swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. सो वो एक्सपेरिमेंट पहले किया वुल के साथ किया, जो कि ये बुक में नहीं है. एज आई टोल्ड यू, इट इज़ टेकन फ्रॉम द नॉवल इनविजिबल मैन. तो पहले वो वुल के साथ किया, वुल ट्रांसपेरेंट हो गया, गिर गया उसके हाथ से, वो खोजने खोजने में रह गया. ही वॉज नॉट एबल टू पिक इट अप. देन he experimented also with a cat, and the cat became invisible, but his eyes were visible, greenish eyes were visible. Then उसके बाद उसको समझ में आ गया कि इनविजिबिलिटी किस ड्रग से हो रहा है, कैट कैसे इनविजिबल हुआ. तो वो पी गया. ही swallowed that. So he became invisible, but he was solid like a glass. So glass also, when it is dipped in the concentrated or dense liquid, it is there. Glass is present over there. Maybe it is not visible. Okay, just as glycerin or honey, if at all if the glass is put in it, it is not visible. But the glass is there. Same way, his body was there, but it was not visible. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. So he was lawless. So every person, so we always want people to be of good character, good human beings. You may be a great scientist, but what is it to others? So it is that everybody wants a good human being, but he was not a good human being. He was lawless. He never followed any law. Even the house owner wanted to throw him out. Eject is to throw him out. So जो घर वाला था, जिसके घर में रेंट में रहता था, so he was a tenant, तो ये घर वाला उसको बाहर निकालना चाहता था. In revenge, Griffin set fire to his house. अब ग्रिफिन जाने से पहले, उस घर को छोड़ने से पहले, after he became invisible, so he set fire to the house. ये उसका रिवेंज था घर वाला के ऊपर. So to get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. अब इनविजिबल तो हो गया बॉडी, लेकिन क्लोथ्स तो इनविजिबल नहीं था. अगर वो क्लोथ्स पहन के चलता, कपड़ा पहन के चलता, ऑब्वियसली ही वुड अपीयर टू बी लाइक अ ह्यूमन बीइंग. सो उसको फाइनली ही हैड टू रिमूव हिज क्लोथ्स. ही उसको कपड़ा उतारना पड़ा ताकि वो इनविजिबल रहे. Thus it was that he became a homeless wanderer. But अब तो उसके पास कोई ना घर था. So finally he became homeless. He was wandering about in the streets of London, and that too in that chilly weather. Without clothes, without money, and quite invisible. So he was not having money. When he is invisible, where will he carry the money? कपड़े नहीं है, पॉकेट नहीं है, तो कहाँ वो रखेगा, कहाँ मनी. मनी भी तो विजिबल हो जाएगा हाथ में रहने से. So he was moving without money, without clothes, and he was quite invisible. Until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. So now he was leaving the footprints. So pehle where we started, that he was leaving the footprints on the stairs. So here it is shown that, so he was walking down the steps. So whatever we read before that, it was a flashback that he had set fire to the house, and now that he was on the streets of London. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footsteps in London. But his adventures were by no means over. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. So adventure was not over. Okay, those boys could not detect him. The boys could not finally catch hold of him. But now he was without clothes. He is realizing the pain to be in that chilly cold, it without the clothes. It was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold. So when children, you find that we say scorching sun. The same thing is there when you go to the to the hill stations, or maybe where the snow-capped mountains are there. You feel the same pinch of snow. It seems as if the cold cuts through the flesh and enters to the bones. So he was feeling that, the bitterly cold, and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. Now, what he thought, that there was something like today's mall that you have with all the things, accessories and all the things, food items, clothes and everything. Same way he entered into a London store, and there he wanted warmth, he wanted certain clothes. Closing time arrived, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. Now what happened? It was the time for the shop to close. अब shop बंद होगा, तो सब कोई ताला लगा के निकल गया. Now he had the full time to himself. So he had the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself. तो वो खोज खोज के देखा कहाँ कुछ खाने का सामान है, कहाँ कुछ warm clothes है जो कि वो पहन सके. And so he broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself with warm clothes. So warm clothes पहन लिया, खोला वो boxes को खोला, उसमें से warm clothes निकाला, and he put on those warm clothes. Soon, with shoes, an overcoat, and a wide brimmed hat, he became a fully dressed and visible person. Then he became a visible person. He was totally dressed, and so he was a visible person. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. So he got the coffee, cold meat in the kitchen. Then he went to the grocery store. Okay, in the same, just as you have, as I told you, in the malls, तो वहाँ पे grocery store भी था. तो वहाँ भी जाके he had the meal, sweets, सब वो खाया. And finally he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. तो रजाई भी था वहाँ पे जो बेचा जा रहा था, तो उस pile of रजाई के ऊपर he slept. Okay, so he got the warmth, dresses, food and warmth to sleep on. So, if only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. अगर सुबह सुबह जल्दी उठ जाता, before anybody arrived, तो पकड़ा नहीं जाता, छुप जाता, and जब खुल जाता दुकान निकल जाता. But he did not, क्योंकि सोया. In that warmth, उसको warmth मिला, उसको रजाई मिला. So obviously he slept and he did not wake up in the morning early. As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. So assistants आके जब दरवाज़ा खोला, लॉक खोला, तब उसका नींद टूटा आवाज़ से. And so when he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked and began to run. So now when he saw that they are coming into the shop, so he was panicked. वो डर गया, वो भागने लगा, लेकिन वो तो कपड़ा पहना हुआ था. He was visible. So they naturally gave chase. In the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off the newly found clothes. So he started running, he escaped. They started chasing him. तो उसके पास एक ही उपाय बच गया था. फिर वो क्लोथ्स को उसको रिमूव करना पड़ा, निकालना पड़ा. जो पहना था, फायदा कुछ नहीं हुआ. सो व्हेन ही ओपन्ड द क्लोथ्स, तब फिर से इनविजिबल हुआ. एंड देन ही वेंट आउट ऑफ द शॉप. तब वो बाहर जा सका, इनविजिबल होके फिर से वो शॉप से बाहर जा सका. So once more he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January air. So it was the month of January, and in that chilly, cold, bitter, cold air, he was again stark naked. तो शॉप से बाहर तो चले गया, लेकिन क्लोथ्स खोल के वापस without clothes he was moving on the streets. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company in the hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the empty space above his shoulders. तो अब उसको कुछ मिला. Now एक शॉप, दूसरा शॉप मिला. वो जब बाहर गया, he got one theatrical company का शॉप. So obviously theatrical company है, so you find that उसमें क्या होगा, सारा चीज़ होगा. So he might be getting different to disguise himself. वो दूसरा वेश में निकल सकता है, having those dresses on. So you find that shivering with cold, he hurried to Drury Lane, the center of the theatrical world. सो ड्ररी लेन इज द लेन, वो एक रास्ता था जहाँ सब दुकान था, एक के बाद एक दुकान था, जहाँ थिएट्रिकल सब सामान मिलता था, थिएटर करने के लिए सामान मिलता था. उसमें दाढ़ी हो सकता है, मूंछ हो सकता है, उसमें टोपी हो सकता है, सन ग्लासेस हो सकता है, कुछ भी. सो एवरीथिंग दैट ही एंटर्ड इनटू द, नाउ ही केम टू द ड्ररी लेन to enter into a shop. He soon found a suitable shop. He made his way invisible upstairs and came out a little later wearing bandages round his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, big bushy side whiskers and a large hat. So वो गया शॉप के अंदर and वो ऊपर शॉप के ऊपर तक गया and then he found certain things for himself. अपने लिए खोजा तो फेस को कैसे ढकता, तो फेस को बैंडेज कर लिया. ओके, एंड देन यू फाइंड दैट ही वोर द ग्लासेस, फॉल्स नोज एंड विस्कर्स. मूछ नहीं लगाया, कैट का जैसे होता है द विस्कर्स, ही हैड दैट. To escape without being seen, he carelessly attacked the shopkeeper from behind, after which he robbed him of all the money he could find. अब शॉपकीपर को आवाज तो आ रहा था, शॉपकीपर उसको खोजने का कोशिश कर रहा था, बट इनविजिबल था, दिख नहीं रहा था. अब शॉपकीपर बहुत कॉशियस हो गया, तो जब देखा कि हो सकता है हम और भाग ना सके, शॉपकीपर कॉशियस हो गया है, तो उसको अटैक कर दिया शॉपकीपर को, एंड पीछे से उसका सर पे मारा. फाइनली उसका दुकान में जितना पैसा था, सो आफ्टर वेयरिंग ऑल दोज क्लोथ्स, आफ्टर डिस्गाइजिंग हिमसेल्फ, एंड देन वो लिया सारा मनी, all the money, and then he moved out from the shop. Finally he was looking like a human being. फेस का जगह कुछ कर नहीं सकता था, इसीलिए बैंडेज कर लिया. So students, this is half of the story I have done from this page number, first page of Footprints Without Feet, that is page number 26 to page number 28, half, third paragraph of page 28. So wait for my next video where line by line explanation you will find for the rest of the chapter. Bye bye. Till then, do well. Thank you.